My father told me to be selfless after he gave my life to my brother. I was 23 years old when my father destroyed my future and called it love. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't look guilty. He didn't even hesitate. He just folded his hands on the kitchen table, looked straight at me, and said, "You need to be selfless. Family comes first." That was the moment I realized I was never his daughter. I was his backup plan. Chapter 1: The Good Daughter. Growing up in suburban Ohio, I was the easy child. Straight A's. Honor roll. Full scholarship offers. Never talked back. My younger brother, Evan, was the opposite. Trouble followed him like a shadow, bad grades, fights, DUI at 19. But my parents treated him like glass, fragile, precious, always one mistake away from shattering. I learned early that love in our house was earned, not given. So I earned it. I worked 2 jobs through college. I applied for every scholarship imaginable. And at 22, I got into a top MBA program in Chicago, full tuition covered. All I needed was the small trust fund my grandfather had left me. Not a fortune, just enough to cover housing and living expenses while I studied. That trust fund was mine. Legally. Explicitly. In writing. Or so I thought. Chapter 2: The Conversation. The night my father told me, he asked me to sit down as a family. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Evan stared at his phone. And my father cleared his throat like he was about to announce a vacation. "Your brother made a mistake," he said. That was how he described Evan crashing his car while drunk into a delivery truck, injuring the driver badly. The lawsuit was massive. Insurance wouldn't cover everything. Then my father said the words that changed everything. "We used your trust fund to settle it." I laughed at first. Because it was impossible. Because it was illegal. Because it was mine. But my father nodded calmly. "It was for the family," he said. "You'll understand one day." My chest burned. "You stole from me," I whispered. He shook his head. "No, we protected your brother." Then came the line that still echoes in my nightmares. "You're strong, you'll recover." Evan wouldn't. Chapter 3: Betrayal is Loud. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood up and walked out. Because betrayal doesn't always explode. Sometimes it settles, quiet, heavy, permanent. My MBA dream vanished overnight. I worked full-time. I moved into a tiny studio. I stopped answering family calls. And for the first time in my life, I stopped being the good daughter. Chapter 4: What They Didn't Know. What my family didn't know was this. My grandfather had trusted me, not my parents. Before he died, he'd given me something else, something my father didn't understand or notice. A copy of the trust documents, and a handwritten note. "If they ever touch this without your consent, fight." So I did. Quietly. Relentlessly. Chapter 5: The Long Game. I contacted an attorney. Then another. Then a forensic accountant. Turns out, my father hadn't just crossed a moral line. He'd crossed several criminal ones. Unauthorized withdrawal. Breach of fiduciary duty. Forgery. The settlement they paid for Evan. It had my forged signature on it. And every lie leaves a trail. Chapter 6: The Call. 3 years later, my phone rang. It was my father. His voice shook. "We need to talk." I smiled for the first time in years. Chapter 7: The Courtroom. The judge didn't care about family first. He cared about law. My parents were ordered to repay the trust, with interest. My father lost his professional license. And Evan. The settlement was voided. He faced the lawsuit again, this time without my future to protect him. Chapter 8: The Final Conversation. My father cornered me outside the courthouse. "You ruined this family," he said. I looked at him calmly. No, I replied. You ruined it when you decided my life was disposable. Then I walked away. Forever. Epilogue, what selfless really means. I went back to school. Not because I owed anyone forgiveness, but because I owed myself a future. And here's what I learned. Selflessness isn't sacrificing yourself for people who wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice you. It's choosing yourself when no one else ever did. Final line. My father told me to be selfless after he gave my life to my brother. So I chose myself. And that was the most powerful revenge of all. I didn't tell anyone about the lawsuit, not my coworkers, not my friends, not even the aunt who still sent me birthday cards like nothing had happened. Revenge doesn't need an audience while it's growing. It needs patience. Chapter 9, Exile. After I walked away from my parents' house that night, I became a ghost in my own family. Holidays passed without invitations. Group chats went silent. Photos appeared online, smiling faces, captions about togetherness. I wasn't angry. I was done. I poured everything into work. I started as a junior analyst at a mid-sized logistics firm in Columbus. Long hours, low pay, no complaints. I learned faster than anyone else because failure wasn't an option anymore. It was my past. At night, I studied contracts and finance on my own. Free courses, old textbooks, notes scribbled at 2 a.m. on legal pads. Every page I read felt like a brick laid under a future no one could steal again. Chapter 10, The Cracks Appear. 3 years after my father told me to be selfless, the cracks finally showed. My mother called first. Her voice was thin, unfamiliar. Your father's job is unstable, she said carefully. I almost laughed. Unstable meant under investigation. The licensing board had questions. The bank had questions. And once one institution starts pulling threads, the whole sweater comes apart. Then Evan texted me. Not an apology. Not even guilt. Just desperation. Dad says if you drop whatever you're doing, this all goes away. I didn't reply. Because Evan had learned the same lesson my father taught him. Someone else will always pay. But this time, it wouldn't be me. Chapter 11, Courtroom Silence. The day of the hearing, my parents sat together. They looked smaller, older. My father wouldn't look at me. The judge asked one simple question. Did the beneficiary authorize the withdrawal? My father opened his mouth. My attorney stood. No, Your Honor. That was it. No speeches. No tears. Just consequences. The trust had been drained illegally. The documents had been altered. And the phrase for the family meant nothing under oath. The ruling came swiftly. Full restitution. Interest added. Legal penalties assessed. My father's license suspended indefinitely. My mother cried. Evan stared straight ahead, pale. Chapter 12, When the Shield is Gone. The lawsuit Evan thought was handled came back with teeth. Without my trust fund shielding him, the settlement collapsed. The injured driver refiled. This time, Evan had no protection. No miracle money. No sacrifice sister. He took a plea deal that followed him everywhere. Background checks, job applications, rental agreements. For the first time in his life, Evan faced something alone. Chapter 13, The Last Words. My father stopped me in the parking lot. I did what I thought was right, he said, his voice cracked. A parent protects their child. I looked at him then, really looked. You had 2 children, I said quietly. That was the moment he understood. Or maybe it was the moment he couldn't deny it anymore. Chapter 14, Rebuilding from Ashes. The restitution check arrived 6 months later. I didn't celebrate. I invested. I enrolled in an executive MBA program, older than most students, sharper than all of them. I graduated at the top of my class. 2 years later, I became a partner at the firm that once hired me as cheap help. Success didn't feel loud. It felt peaceful. Epilogue, the definition of selfless. I ran into my mother once at a grocery store. She asked if we could talk. I said no, because forgiveness is not a debt you owe someone who broke you. And family is not the people who demand your future as payment. Family is the life you build when you finally stop begging to be chosen. Final words. My father told me to be selfless after he gave my life to my brother. So I stopped shrinking. I stopped sacrificing. I stopped asking. And in doing that, I didn't lose my family. I found myself. The end.